If you are over the age of 35 and you're still trying to make something meaningful happen with your music because you know you're making great music, but you're also just really busy, maybe you have a family, job, bills, life, there are 3 lies that you have probably been told or that you tell yourself that you've probably bought into at least once. I know I've bought them too. And the worst part about these lies is that they don't just waste your time. They actually erode your confidence. They destroy your sense of who you are as an artist. And they prevent you from being able to go out there and find the right people who are gonna love your music. Today, we're gonna expose those lies for what they are. We're gonna name them, and then we're gonna put them aside to find your truth. Let's get into it. What's up? Welcome to Scratch Track. My name is Chris Robley. I work with grown-up musicians who are juggling very busy lives, but who still want to do serious things for their music, but who want to be able to move their career forward without having to go broke, chase trends, or burn out. And if you're looking to move your music forward from a more solid foundation, check out Unbreakable. It's my artist identity framework that helps you clarify your purpose, your audience, and your messaging before you go out there and burn a bunch of time and money chasing strategies that were never meant to work for you. If you want to turn your listeners into lifelong fans, get started at musicdemo.org/unbreakable. All right, this is the first episode of season 2 of Scratch Track, and the theme of this entire season is truth before tactics. And if we're going to get to the truth, well, that means we got to work our way through the lies. Lies, lies, and the lying liars who tell them. Lies, lies, lies. Wasn't that a Guns N' Roses album? I know it's a song by Morgan Wallen. So let's name these 3 lies that we've been told time and time again. Lie number 1.
Go on, step inside. No need to linger in the hallway.
We're all friends here.
There is a modern, insider, secret strategy that will work for everyone if you can just only get your hands on it. The belief is that there's some secret knowledge. Someone out there knows it. They hold the keys to the kingdom. They've got the power ring. And if you can just get the blueprint from them and follow it to the letter, it will just unlock everything. Growth, fame, fortune, self-respect, the love and understanding of Aunt Judy, who up until then has asked you every year if you're still doing that music thing.
Are you still doing that music thing?
What do we think this secret insider industry playbook is? Well, there are a lot of different versions of this myth out there. One is, you just run meta ads, put a video on Instagram, run that as an ad to get people to Spotify. And that's going to trigger the algorithm. And that's going to just create this huge spike in streaming activity. And as Spotify's algorithm takes over, you can then reduce your daily spend on the ads and it'll just scale perfectly. Or the guy who's like a hustle guru and he tells you got to post every day on Reels. Because if you don't, you're only giving Instagram, one chance a week to find your audience. But if it's every day, it's this exponential opportunity of audience growth that's available to you. And if you don't do that, some other hungry artist will. Or maybe it's the person saying, just use this growth funnel template, direct people's attention through this perfectly orchestrated journey from stranger to customer, or launch a merch drop with paid ads, or do a free plus shipping and handling offer. Or maybe the secret is that you really got to capitalize on those super fans. You need to be in the Discord server, live on Twitch, talking to people constantly. Or someone else might tell you what you really need is a content engine, a better system for batching all of your efforts and making sure that anytime you go out there and shoot a video, you're actually getting 120 videos to share over the next 3 months. Or maybe someone else is telling you, in order to capture attention, you need to be an instantly eye-catching, archetypical superhero or supervillain. You need a shtick and a look with dyed green hair, a pirate's eye patch. And you should be doing a stupid human trick, like jumping off a trampoline while playing guitar and you fall into a pool of Jack Daniels. Those are strategies. They're all legitimate strategies. It might sound like I'm talking shit about them. They all will work for a certain type of person. Because here's the reality. Running Instagram ads to get people to Spotify to trigger the algorithm there, that works great if you make good EDM or background music, lo-fi beats, instrumental piano, party music, or super trend-forward genres. This is because there is what I call a background bias on Spotify. If you're not a super famous musician, a classic legacy artist, or super trending, then the Spotify algorithm is likely going to favor you if your music is generic enough to be extremely usable.
Usable.
For studying, working, relaxing, exercising, having a moody candlelit dinner. That's the stuff that when you advertise it to strangers is going to get naturally more streams, more placements, more algorithmic pushes. Versus music that may be highly specific. It may be super personality-driven songs, something about the lyrics or the musical arrangement calls so much attention to itself that it's not usable in some sort of sense of broad universal utility. So yeah, the more elastic the use cases for this music, the better it's going to do in the Spotify algorithm. Is that you? When you ask someone what they experience when they hear your music, do you want them to be like, oh, it has functional universality? Or do you want them to be like, fuck, that was good? Sometimes that quality in your music is the thing that makes it less useful, less blending into the background.
I am Specific Man.
So yeah, running ads in this way is very genre dependent. The more anyone can use the song, the more the algorithm is going to love it. So the strategy of running meta ads to Spotify is heavily dependent on low skip rates. And you know what music doesn't get skipped very often? Background music. Might also depend on having a large test budget. Whenever you listen to the people who tout this strategy, it often comes with a recommendation that you spend something like $300 to $1,500 per song. Now, if you're doing that every 6 weeks, that adds up to a lot of money, especially if you're like trying to save for your kid's college, or you want to keep buying organic milk in the age of inflation. Or you just put a reminder on your phone's calendar to cancel Apple TV and Peacock as soon as those free trials are over. That sort of strategy also depends on you being the type of person who is comfortable living inside an ads manager dashboard, or that you're inclined to optimize campaigns as they go. Now, I just did a bunch of tearing apart of just that one strategy alone. All of the secret industry playbooks I mentioned before all have their own weak points for certain kinds of artists. Committing to being super active on Instagram Reels is going to work if you're like young and camera native, charismatic, you're visually magnetic, you have the time to post every day, you don't mind living in front of your camera all the time, and you're comfortable riding trends. Building an e-commerce funnel for a merch offer or a free plus shipping and handling offer might work if you love tech, like you love being behind the scenes and just tinkering on code and automations and plugging stuff together. You have the budget to burn because, again, you're going to need to run ads, which brings in a whole other dashboard element. And you like to optimize everything. Being more available to your superfans on Discord or Twitch. Cool. If you have time, are you available for that? Do you even have enough to say to people every day or 25 times a day? Imagine a classic act like Pink Floyd. They were sort of distant from their audience in a way. There was an enigma to them, right? And now you're going to tell them, hey, you need to get on Discord and be talking to your audience all day long? They wouldn't do it. Maybe they'd have a moderator doing it for them and they'd pop in once every 4 months with some mysterious puzzle to solve. But that is not how Pink Floyd was going to communicate best with their audience. So again, I just shot a lot of holes in a lot of these strategies. It's not to say that any of them are wrong or evil or anything like that. They're just all super genre dependent, super dependent on your personality, and super dependent on what's just realistic for your life and your own talents. When people dangle some insider secret knowledge out there, and we believe it, right? We believe someone holds the key. We listen and we try to emulate it, and it's like almost like a borrowed jacket, right? We try it on. When it doesn't fit right, which is going to be most of the time, we feel super awkward inside that borrowed jacket. And then we assume we're the problem. It's our body that's the problem. The shape, the size that doesn't fit in this other person's jacket. Which brings me, of course, to Greek mythology. You ever heard of Procrustes? Or Procrustes, I don't speak Greek. In Greek mythology, Procrustes was a demigod. He had a house on the side of a road. And this was a road that was traveled quite often by weary people, winding through these hillside climbs, and they're probably parched and haven't had enough food and water. And there's Procrustes in his nice house. And he's like, what's up, friendly people? Want to come inside and have a nice meal and drink some water? And they come in. He welcomes them in.
Come, friends, rest within my hall.
Nice guy, right? And he says like, oh, you poor thing, you must be so tired. Do you want to take a nice nap? And of course, they're all tired. They've been walking forever. They're like, yeah, how hospitable of you. And he shows them this magical bed. And he says, this bed fits everyone perfectly. They're like, wow, pretty sweet. I guess he's a demigod. Maybe he's got this power. Can't wait to lie down in this magical bed. And they do. They lay down. And the ones who are too tall for the bed are like, wait a minute, I don't fit. What's going on here? And he says, you do. He gets out a bunch of hacksaws and he amputates parts of their limbs until they fit. And of course, they bleed out and they die. The other people are too short for the bed that he has promised fits everyone perfectly. Well, what happens to them? He gets out some other tools and he stretches them until their ligaments stretch and their bones break and they bleed out and die. Greeks were pretty dark, weren't they? But they were also onto something. This cautionary tale about forced conformity is kind of a perfect metaphor for modern music marketing advice, because it leads you to, instead of building a strategy around your own artist identity, your own life, your own personality, your own likes and dislikes, we try to stretch ourselves, or shrink ourselves to fit the strategy. And of course it doesn't work. Quick aside here, if you feel like you need to dye your hair or try some viral gimmick in order to grow your audience online, well, you might be making one of 5 common branding mistakes that busy artists tend to make. I've got a free guide on how to fix it though. To get your copy, go to musicdemo.org/branding. Now, lie number 2. I tried the thing, it didn't work for me, nothing works for me, I must suck. This is where lie number 1 collapses like an avalanche right into lie number 2. We believe that because there is this single, smart, insider strategy that should have worked for us, we tried it, then we tried another, and they didn't work, nothing's going to work for us. I tried the ads, I did the reels, bought the course, I ran the funnel, I set up the automation, I tested the strategies. No results. Therefore, my music sucks. I'm too old. I missed the boat. The window for the kind of genre that I make has closed. I guess my music's irrelevant to people. It doesn't connect emotionally. I'm behind. I got too late a start, and now there's too much to learn. I'm never going to catch up. Maybe I just don't have it, whatever that mysterious it factor is. There's a psychologist named Martin Seligman who has studied something called learned helplessness. You might have heard of this. It's where repeated failed attempts at something slowly condition you to believe that nothing is going to work because your effort actually doesn't matter anymore. Your effort is not tied to results. It's not tied to growth. It's not tied to anything happening. Your effort is worthless. Trying is pointless. If you did A, B, C, D, E, F, G, then X, Y, and Z is not going to work either. Which reminds me that when I was a real little kid, I thought that LMNOP was actually one letter. But what if your effort isn't the thing that's wrong or pointless? It's just you're pushing on the wrong door. It's like your area of focus is off because you've been trained by the modern music industry to expect viral spikes, the big explosion in your Spotify streams, vanity metrics like your follower counts, explosive algorithmic reach because something that you do or said or made had an element of mass appeal, chasing the kinds of success that the platforms define for us instead of our own priorities. It's all the very publicly viewable stuff that makes us feel very uncool if those numbers aren't high, while meanwhile, we're ignoring the long game of audience depth, making and sharing true art, creating a sense of conversation and loyalty with the people who like your music, and appreciating perhaps the small but very dedicated engagement that you do get. If you know who Gary Vee is, you might have seen him share an Instagram carousel where he says, you think 25 likes suck? This is 25 people in a room, and then it's like a conference room that's completely packed. Or you think 100 views suck? Here's 100 people in a small rock club. Or you think 10,000 likes sucks? Here's 10,000 people in a stadium. And while, of course, the people in the real world environments, they expended a lot more effort to be there, so it's a more meaningful action than a like or a view. So the comparison doesn't hold up exactly, but it's still useful because when you share a video of your new song, let's say, and it gets 200 views and 25 people comment, I think because we've been trained to prioritize the wrong thing, we see the 25 comments as failure. Think about that. 25 people were just on the toilet or in the kitchen or at work and stopped long enough to watch something you made and say so. Instead of 25 people commenting being an indication of failure, it should actually feel like a sign of success. But instead, we confuse reach with resonance and we chase the reach. You know who Nick Drake is? Incredible folk singer-songwriter. Had all these crazy alternate tunings on his guitar, made this really, really deep, somber, poetic music. He barely sold any records in his lifetime. He made 3 albums, and by some estimates, his sales for all 3 of those albums combined were as low as 5,000. On the high end of the estimates, it's something like 20 to 30,000 copies sold of all 3 of his albums during the course of his life. He never charted. He never saw commercial success. Since then, he's had massive cultural influence. He's probably sold, 500,000 records or more. You probably know his song was in the Volkswagen commercial like 20 years ago. He's everywhere now. Did the fact that his records hadn't sold while he was still alive mean his music sucked? No, of course not. Unfortunately, he died in, I think, 1974 and never got to see the true resonance that his music would have with so many listeners. What's lie number 3? It's this. If I don't see results, I don't deserve results. This is where lie number 1 avalanches into lie number 2 and then hits this one for all-out identity corrosion. I tried the secret strategies. None of them worked. Nothing's gonna work for me because I either suck or there's something so wrong with me that I can't connect with the audiences that I dreamed about. And if I'm not blowing up, if I'm not scaling, if I'm not hustling, then I'm a hobbyist. I shouldn't take myself seriously as an artist. Everyone keeps telling me real artists are younger, hungrier, more viral. There are going to be music marketers and labels and agencies and educators out there that will scoff at you. When you hold on to this childish dream of growing your audience at your age, with your music, with the tiny amount of time that you actually put into promotion and marketing, you can't be serious. They think quite seriously that if you're not 20 and sacrificing it all at the altar of mass appeal attention, then you don't deserve success. But seriously, fuck them. There is nothing childish or dreamlike about you taking your music seriously, yes, even at this age, seriously enough that you can move it forward one step at a time. Maybe you're never going to sell out Gillette Stadium 3 nights in a row. Maybe you're not going to be playing live at the Grammys or on the cover of Rolling Stone. But there is no rule, and there's no person out there who should be convincing you that you can't get 100 more comments on your next Instagram video or 20,000 more streams on your next song on Spotify. That you can't move your music from a thing that's like an expensive hobby to a profitable second job. But we're told fortune favors the bold, right? Fine. Here's the question. Are you looking for fortune? Are you wanting to be Achilles storming Troy and ending up dead, when instead you can just make progress? I mean, progress is just one step at a time, right? The industry only celebrates visible growth because they need artists to succeed at such a level and scale that it becomes a profit engine for them and their investors and their A&R teams and their marketing teams and their accounting teams. But art has never required mass approval to be legitimate. It's never even needed profit to be legitimate. I mean, you've probably heard the story a million times about how Van Gogh only ever sold one painting in his entire life. I'm not saying you should ignore business. In fact, I think you might have better odds than the label artist at turning your music into a business because you're a team of 1 or 2 or 4. You don't need to keep an entire corporation afloat on the backs of your next Instagram post or your next single. What I am saying is that a business or an artistic passion that is built on self-rejection is unsustainable. Lie number 1 tells you that there's a universal tactic and it's going to work if you can just find it. Lie number 2 says, I must be defective. And lie number 3 says, I don't deserve to take this seriously. The damage from all 3 of those lies come from the same root problem. You pursued tactics before you built identity, before you run ads, before you decide what kind of content you're going to create, before you hop on the next social app, before you choose an artist name or design a concert poster. You need to answer, why do I exist? I don't mean like in an existential way. I mean like, why do you exist as an artist? Who is my music for? What promise am I making? And what does my audience get when my music fulfills that promise? Answering all of those questions is why I built Unbreakable. It's a framework to establish a stronger foundation for your music. It's not a tactics course, and it's definitely not about you needing to dye your hair or try some viral gimmick. I do not want you to be somebody else. It's about unearthing the superpowers that you already likely have and finding the best ways to show that, not to the entire world, but to the people who your music is perfect for and who are going to love you for being you. In Unbreakable, I help you uncover your core truths, define your real audience, articulate your message, and build a better content strategy so you move outward from something stable and unchanging. And you can stop trying to stretch yourself or make yourself smaller to fit on Procrusty's bed. This is about your own damn bed. Because when that home base is solid and truly yours, you put truth before tactics, and promotion stops feeling like some weird form of self-betrayal. It starts feeling confident and fun and like an extension of who you already are. To get started, go to musicdemo.org/unbreakable. All right. See you next time. Peace.